Oh, yeah, baby. We're not the suits that talk football. We're the dudes that know football. And you've just crossed over into the trend zone. Casey here with Dave. We are the football dudes. Dave, are you ready, bro?
Green 18. Shut up. Yeah, I'm ready.
All right.
Just had to get that out.
Next stop, the trend zone. It's Wednesday, January 10th. Coming to you from Los Angeles, California. It's a beautiful 59 degrees here in January. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about a couple of shocking vacancies on the coaching carousel. The GOAT of all GOATs going out to pasture. And of course, all of the awesome games coming up from the wacky and woolly wild card weekend. Oh,
Oh.
super wild card weekend. Thanks for asking. But before we get to all that, Dave, let's get it started with the tasty nug for the people. And Dave, I'm not talking tasty nugs. I'm talking super tasty, crunchy, sticky, icky playoff nugs, bro. Come on.
That just happens to be the kind I'm packing right now, Casey, and delivering to the
I knew I
people.
liked you. I knew I liked you.
Check this one out, Case. For 34 consecutive seasons, at least four teams have made the playoffs that missed the playoffs the previous year. This year, there are six new teams to qualify for the playoffs. Those teams are Cleveland, Detroit, Green Bay, Houston, Pittsburgh, and our Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, baby. Party over here, y'all.
Once again, Casey, we talk about this all the time too. There are four new division winners this year. Those are Baltimore, Houston, Dallas, and Detroit. And Casey, in 19 of the past 21 seasons, at least one team made the jump from worst to first. Boom. That happened this year too, as the Houston Texans did just that. We mentioned the last couple of weeks. There's a chance that that could happen. And it came through for the Texans. Pretty awesome. How about this one, though? 10 of the 14 playoff teams have won at least one Super Bowl, right? That means the others have not. It's Buffalo, Cleveland, Detroit, and Houston all looking for their first Super Bowl.
Crazy, dude. I got a little side nug here. If we're talking about 10 of the teams, 10 of these playoff teams with at least one Super Bowl win have accounted for 32 of the 57 Super Bowl victories. They're greedy, Dave. So
Dude, they
greedy.
average three each. Selfish. How about sharing it? In fact, I'm kind of rooting for Buffalo, Cleveland, Detroit, and Houston
What?
to break through. One of these teams deserves it.
28 years feels like it's never happened, okay?
Oh, it has been a long time for you boys. I'll tell you what. Casey, in the 2023 regular season, we always talk about how tight these games are. 147 games that were decided by one score. So they're one score games, man. That over the last two seasons, 543 games were one score games. That's almost 56% of the games come down to that last possession, basically, where one team's either trying to score and get that equalizer, or the other team is trying to grind that clock out and finish the ball in victory formation. It's pretty awesome.
Oh man, that's why Vegas always wins. And Dave, little fun fact, the last time both the Browns and the Lions won at least 10 games in the same season, 1953, and that was also when Detroit defeated Cleveland in the NFL championship game. It was tight back then too, Dave, 17-16. Party over here, y'all.
Yeah, way to go. All right, Detroit, man. Detroit's
Rock
having a
City.
pretty good season here, Casey. Overall, even when you look at the college scene too, and this Lions team, how everything's going for Detroit right now. It's pretty exciting.
I know that's why I feel bad about what I have coming up, but we'll get to that in a minute. But I do want to remind all the hep cats out there in Listensville, the Trend Zone is now available for subscription on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, TuneIn, Stitcher, Blueberry. Basically, anywhere you get your podcast, the football dudes are there.
No doubt about it. It's all there for you, folks.
Dave, we don't normally talk a lot of college football in here. We did just have the national championship, which you alluded to, the Michigan Wolverines 34-13 over the Washington Huskies. But
Nice.
Dave, the guy that's got most of those in the last 20 so years, Nick Saban announces on Wednesday that he would be retiring from college football. Saban won 6 titles at Bama, 7 overall, and he won at least 10 games for 16 years in a row. That is total domination.
It certainly is, and I wonder, if the changing landscape here, if he just got to that point in his life, or like I said, the changing landscape of college ball, the way the portal has impacted things, the NIL, it's just not the way it used to be, and
Mm-mm.
I think it's tougher and tougher for Saban to keep up with those changes. Maybe that's it. Who knows? Maybe he just needed a change in his life, and he's old enough, and he's accomplished enough that he feels like he's done enough and as an actual head coach. And then who knows, will he fade away, and we heard from a little bit here and there, or will he sort of become a person that is talking a lot and discussing college football? That will be interesting to see.
Yeah, you mentioned how the landscape is changing. It's less and less about coaching football, and it is recruiting, and it's re-recruiting your guys and these NIL deals and all that. If
Yeah,
he could just sit there and just coach his guys and didn't have to do all that other crap, I think he'd probably hang around. But recruiting is a year-round process now. It never stops. You got to constantly hammering that, and I don't think that's what appeals to Saban
yeah.
about football and coaching.
Yeah,
So,
we're both just speculating on that, but I kind of feel like that's the thing. It's just the way things have changed. He's just not comfortable with going that route, and
it's
he's tired of it.
exhausting, dude.
Yeah,
It's like
he's
it's
tired
worse
of it.
than what the pro guys have to do, you know?
Yeah,
It's
and
it's
the portal opens
nonstop.
every other weekend, and good guys are
Yeah.
flying through it. And
And then you have to, like I said, re-recruit your own guys. At least in the pros, you sign this guy for a 3-year deal. You know you
yeah,
have him for that. You sign this hotshot 5-star quarterback. He wants to play. He's not ready. He's gone. Now you're bringing someone else in. Trent, it's a lot.
constant.
It's a
Yeah,
mess. Yeah. So
yeah.
I think at some point we might have to get 2 contracts for these college
I think,
guys with the
yeah,
portal craziness
right.
and
Maybe
the
Saban's
NIL.
just wants to just hold on to his Dr. Pepper, Casey. You know,
Hey, yeah, get, that Aflac going, so plenty
Quarterback's
of
coming
time,
back.
yeah. Well, Dave, there was, that was the biggest news out of college.
Absolutely.
Uh, Black Friday or Black Monday came after the Week 18 games. We had 3 jobs open during the season, the Raiders, the Chargers, and the Panthers, but 4 more coaches joined in this week, and a couple of them are blowing our freaking minds.
Yeah, a little bit here. I mean, we certainly expected Ron Rivera was on the hot seat, and that one was pretty well. We saw that coming
Yeah.
out at the Washington Commanders. There, the new big money guy there owning that squad wants to put in his own guy. Arthur Smith fired from the Falcons. That one was a little less straightforward, but again, I think they were about 7-10, a couple of 3 seasons in a row. So I think he had his chance and really wasn't showing enough improvement
Mhm.
there. But wow, the Vrabel one, dude. I mean, what this one came out of nowhere for us, really, um, with the Titans. I guess when you kind of look back at it, you can think about some of the acrimony between Vrabel and the general manager in the personnel decisions, maybe.
Yeah, it's hard to say what goes on behind the scenes there.
Yeah.
And was Vrabel involved in bringing in, the other quarterbacks? Obviously, they tried to go with Tannehill, who's fought some injuries and just couldn't get it done in some of the best seasons for the Titans there. Malik Willis came in, not really sure he was a dude. It looks like they have something in Levis, but with Carthon there now, maybe he wants his stamp all over this team. But the Titans were a team that we looked at that seemed like they were better coached than the actual team was.
Yeah, I think they outperform their talent, and I think you got to look at coaching when
Mhm.
that kind of thing happens. And it seems like to me that Vrabel will be one of those dudes that's not unemployed very long. He'll be at the
Nope.
front end of people's lists who are interested in acquiring a new head coach and a guy that kind of puts his stamp on things and builds a team in his image. Gives an
Mhm.
identity to a team.
Yeah, and as shocking as that was, the news we got today, just about an hour ago, was even more shocking. I had no idea that this was in the works at all.
Yeah, we didn't see this coming. Pete Carroll let go from the Seahawks. He's still in a consulting position there, but he will no longer be the head coach of that football team. The energy that he brought, despite being 72 years old, I believe.
Yeah.
Um,
72 years young, Dave.
yeah, I mean, he was pumped, he was hyped up, and he was good to go. It seemed like he was ready to coach his guys through a brick wall. But apparently, they feel like that maybe his message has run its course, or whatever you want to say. But they're looking to move on and see if they can, um, kind of start fresh there. And I guess Pete will have something to do with that decision.
Yeah, and I was reading that before we started the show that he was fighting hard to hold on to that coaching job, but
Mm,
the
okay.
brass was like motivated to move in a different direction. So that also makes me question what kind of role he's going to have within the organization. I mean, you don't just throw a guy like Pete Carroll to the curb and be like, thanks, but no thanks. So they'll figure it out. Or maybe if he's still got the inkling that he wants to coach, he's going to turn down that consultant role and maybe move back to college or somewhere in the NFL. We'll see. It's still kind of fresh and raw there, but
Yeah.
that also gives me a little worry about how they might go about filling that position with a former defensive coordinator in Seattle that is in a different place right now. But we might get to that later.
Yeah. Story for another day. Okay.
Yeah. And dude, a story for another day. As of right now, Bill Belichick still the HC of the Patriots.
Yeah, and Belichick says he's coaching there, just like he always does. He's going about business, doing everything he can to make his team better, and his team is the Patriots. So until further notice, um, no change of status for Bill.
I mean, could we see a situation where Bill agrees to let go of a lot of the responsibility and is just coaching and moves out of, having say in the GM role or less of a say there and stays put in New England and gets some of his guys back in there?
Is that the key, Casey? Because we did, no, we talked about it off the show, but we did talk about Bill Belichick's first through third round picks over the last 10 years, and none of those guys have been re-signed
Mm-mm.
onto the Patriots. And we know Bill Belichick is calling the shots there. Some of the picks have been questioned. Certainly, they've had
Disastrous?
issues with getting a receiver through the draft. So, yeah, if that's the issue, then maybe they can bring in a GM, kind of reshuffle the structure there, and just have somebody at least guide him
Yeah.
with regards to the draft scenario.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Still plenty of time to work through that. There's going to be a lot of, speculation on who's going where in between now and then, but there's bigger fish to fry. But Dave, we do have the draft order all dialed in.
Oh, yes, yes, we do have the draft order dialed in, indeed, and it
Oh,
is.
but hey, before we go there, talk about your hierarchy of what you think are the best jobs available in the NFL.
Oh, well, I mean, start with my Chargers, of course. They have the franchise quarterback in place that's still that's just signed a 5-year extension, so he's got um, a lot. He's ascending. If you're talking about money, then certainly Washington looks like it will be a pretty good job, and so does Carolina, because those guys got money coming out of their pockets every which way, and they're willing to spend to get their guy. So Arthur Blank is pretty well off there too, and certainly the Seattle. There was talk about ownership change there, but I think that may or may not be um, something that people concern themselves with. There's only 32 of these things, so
Yeah.
when you look at it, the big picture, um, all of these jobs are fantastic jobs, and it's an opportunity for somebody. You know, who knows? Tom Brady's trying to buy into the Raiders, and they're in Vegas, so there's a lot of shine on that too. And we talked about the Titans. There was a bit of a transition going, but they've still got some good pieces there. So
Yeah, dude. And the problem with most of these teams is they don't have a quarterback. You mentioned your Chargers do. So in these top 10 picks, obviously the Bears have the number one overall pick from Carolina, followed up by the Durs, the Patriots, the Cardinals, your Chargers at 5, the Giants at 6, Titans at 7, Falcons at 8, Bears at 9, and then the Jets at 10. So we're gonna need some quarterbacks.
no doubt about it. This year, it would not surprise me if quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3. That would be pretty exciting. I'm not suggesting that the teams that possess those picks are picking quarterbacks, but simply that those picks will be used on quarterbacks. And I expect to see some of these guys. I mean, there's some really exciting young quarterback prospects coming out in this year's draft. So,
Well, speaking of prospects, some undergrads got a little bit of good news this week.
yeah, the NFL announced 34 players who've been granted special eligibility for the 24 draft. Those guys are eligible to be drafted at this point. So those 34 players are basically an additional round's worth of players that are available to be selected in late April at the draft in Detroit, Michigan this year. It's going to be exciting.
Oh, and some of those guys are actually going to get to play one more football game.
Yeah. The East West Shrine Bowl, the HBCU Legacy Bowl, and the Senior Bowl are now inviting underclassmen to participate in their games. So that is very exciting. Even the Senior Bowl, I mean, I don't know if they're going to change the title of this thing, but any way you slice it, those are exciting opportunities. One last chance to show these guys, some of them from different programs and stuff, that when you put all of them together and all that talent is assembled, that how do they measure up? And so I think a lot of the GMs and the talent evaluators and such value these games considerably when they get to see those practices even that lead up to the game.
Yeah, and it only seems fair to do it this way because, as we've seen in the last few years, more of these players, especially from the Senior Bowl, are getting drafted to teams, and not only
Oh
getting
yeah,
drafted, being major contributors. So
yeah.
if you're out of college and you're going to the pros and you've done all your stuff, might as well let those guys play. So I am stoked about all of that.
No question. It's going to just make the Senior Bowl a little bit more talent laden, and there's nothing
Mhm,
wrong with that, right? We get
mhm.
to see some of these juniors play that wouldn't have been eligible previously. So
Yeah.
certainly an advantage for everyone involved.
Win win, baby. Well, speaking of win, Dave, it's win or go home. It is Super Wildcard weekend.
I can't believe it, Casey. I got to tell you, it's slipping away, man.
It is, dude. Just a few short weeks.
Wow. It is nuts, dude. But this six pack of games that they've got on tap for us here, it's really going to be quite exciting.
Go ahead and
To
get us started on that, bro.
Will do, man. How about the Cleveland Browns at the Houston Texans? It's a 2.5 point favorites of the Browns on the road here. It is a rematch of a Week 16 game, won but one it was in Houston, but it was won by Cleveland 36-22. Of course, that one did not have Mr. CJ Stroud.
That's right. And this is the Deshaun Watson Bowl in March of 2022. Cleveland traded its 22, 23, and 24 first round picks, a 2023 third round pick, and fourth round picks in 22 and 24 for Watson, and a Houston sixth round pick. But we're not even going to see Watson and his $230 million guaranteed contract in this. But we'll see the other side of that. We're talking CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
And dude, Stroud was only 13 years old the last time Joe Flacco started in a playoff game, okay? So it's been a minute for Flacco, but the Texans became the first team in the Super Bowl era to win a division with a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback. Not only that, but dude, Houston absolutely nailed this draft with Stroud and Anderson, Tank Dell, who's unfortunately hurt, Xavier Hutchinson, and Juice Scruggs, dude. And last week, it was a playoff game. CJ Stroud, 20 of 26, 264 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And he led that fourth quarter drive, 12 plays, 73 yards to take the lead and send those Colts home. Stroud is better than anybody could have hoped for, but can he keep it going against this number one ranked Browns pass defense?
Yeah, it's a great question, man. I'll tell you what, the Browns, for their journey to the playoffs, had won 4 in a row and secured a playoff spot. So they chose to rest players and took a loss in a meaningless game last week, losing to the Bengals. But at 11-6 in the 5 seed, they got to go on the road here to Houston. And like I said, this isn't the same Houston team that they beat a couple weeks ago. That also did they not have C.J. Stroud, they also weren't fielding Will Anderson in that
Yeah.
football game. So another huge, like you said, massive impact player for this Texan squad. But the Browns season was in serious jeopardy, dude, due to poor quarterback play until they brought in Flacco. And his consistent play has made this team a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Flacco, the first player in history, dude, with 250 plus yards and 2 touchdown passes in each of his first 5 games with the team. So a really impressive, performance since he's arrived there. He actually leads the league in yards per game at 323 plus
Wow.
yards per game. He's thrown 13 TDs in just 5 games, which actually would lead the NFL in touchdowns per game at 2.6 touchdowns per game. It would equate to 44 TDs in a season, which would have led the league. Of course, extrapolating is quite dangerous, Casey. Beyond all that, though, his big arm, and I think his solid decision making has really opened up the Browns' offense quite a bit and made all the other players around him much better.
Yeah, I want to see if CJ Stroud can keep his good decision making up because he's done it well all year. Only 5 interceptions. The Browns lead the NFL in takeaways with 28, but the Texans lead the NFL in giveaways at only 14. Texans plus 10 on the season. The Browns -9. I know a lot of that business happened before Flacco got there,
Yeah.
but that's going to be a huge part of this game. And I know that CJ won't have Tank Dell, but he's going to have Nico Collins last week in the playoff game. 9 catches, 195 yards, and a touchdown, and started that game the right way. That big 75-yard touchdown right off the bat.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Probably no Noah Brown in this, who's been really good in this. So someone else is going to have to step up. Is it going to be Dalton Schultz? Is it going to be Hutchinson? Or is it going to be Bobby Trees? We got to see what happens with that receiving core and if they can function against that Jim Schwartz defense.
Yeah, and I agree with you. CJ Stroud's decision making, but also the anticipation that he throws the football with. Man, he throws it before guys have cut, and it's right on the money.
Oh, yeah, dude. I think it was 2nd and 14 last week. He was way back. He just lobbed that thing. I thought he was throwing it out, but it was Nico Collins coming around, grabbing the catch. Those guys had connected on it. That was a big play, kept a drive going. And you're right. The anticipation from Stroud is off the charts. And he's going to have to be really good because the Texans can't run the football, dude. They're averaging less than 97 yards on the ground running the football. So that also plays into Cleveland's,
Yeah, well,
what they
talking
do
about the
well.
Cleveland defense, I got to get it to that, Casey. They led the league in total defense. Yards per game was just over 270 yards allowed per game. That's the fewest yards per game allowed in 10 seasons, now, since
Wow.
Seattle did that with 267, just over 267. So pretty much the same. That's every 10 years you get kind of a defense with this kind of yardage given up, man. Myles Garrett, 14 sacks in 3 straight seasons, and that also means 14 or more, but 14 this year as well. So it's pretty impressive. These guys have a handful of dudes banged up, though, as well, which can be an issue. We'll see if they've got a lot of guys ready to go. Like, I'm talking a handful of guys. Kareem Hunt is questionable.
Mhm.
Pierre Strong, the running back, questionable. Amari Cooper's listed as questionable, right? So, I mean, it's
The
going to be
Texans
tough to
better
see.
hope that Cooper doesn't play in that Week 16 game. 11 for 265 and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, that
Maybe
was an
give a little
amazing football
extra
game.
attention to Amari.
Yeah,
Maybe.
maybe so. And he had arguably his best season ever. He was in the Pro Bowl. He had 1,250 yards on the season and 5 touchdowns. Other guys, though, have stepped it up. David Njoku's had a fantastic game. He's a really strong blocker as well, which helps that running game where Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt have really picked up after the loss of Nick Chubb.
I got
A little something going on
we
over there.
got a little crazy dog here that wants to get in. I guess she's a Browns fan because of the dog pound. It is going to be an interesting game, too,
Yeah.
contrasting styles. The Texans, like I said, this is basically a second playoff game because they had to win last week or there was no moving forward. They got that done. It's going to be a step up in intensity and step up in competition. It's going to be a good game.
Awesome football game.
All right, Dave, up next, we have the Miami Dolphins at the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Chiefs are 3.5-point favorites in this one. Chiefs beat Miami and Frankfurt in week 9, 21-14. Dave, the forecast for Kansas City on Saturday looks to be very cold. Temperatures in the fourth quarter expected to hit -6 degrees, double-digit wind speeds, and a 43% chance of light snow. Sidebar, in 1971, the AFC playoffs, Dolphins and Chiefs played the longest game in NFL history, 82 minutes and 40 seconds. They could also be playing in the coldest. This is the Tyreek Bowl, Dave. Tell me about these Fins.
That's right. The Tyreek Bowl is a good one. Dolphins have had won 5 of 6, but have since lost 2 straight, getting blown out by the Ravens 2 weeks ago and then losing last week to the Bills. Losing those games, extremely costly for this Dolphins team. They were the 2 seed. Now they drop to the 6 seed and likely playing road games throughout the playoffs. It has been one of the most prolific offenses. We've talked about it all year. They led the league in total offense, over 400 yards a game. Tua led the league in pass yards at over 4,600, right? And that's he actually threw the 3rd most yards in Dolphins franchise history.
Wow.
Which is pretty impressive. They've got a guy named Dan Marino there that put up some big numbers. So awesome season. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Mostert, Devon Achane. They've had exceptional seasons there. But lately, they've been really banged up and haven't had a couple of pieces lately on offense in particular. Waddle still questionable and Mostert questionable. They've missed a couple of games now, and they're kind of trending in the right direction, which would be enormous for this team because basically they were a shell of themselves recently. On defense, they lost Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, and Xavier Howard was unable to play. He's still doubtful going into this one.
Oh, that's brutal, dude.
So we don't know what the situation is going to be. They need these guys to rally, right? Tyreek Hill has been banged up. He's questionable. I know these guys are going, but when you have a designation like that, Mostert, Achane, Waddle, Tyreek, Teron Armstead, I'm talking about like the best guys on the team here are all questionable. So that becomes an enormous issue. Is can they field a team that can really execute Mike McDaniel's offense, that can do what they need to do on the defensive side of the ball to get after the quarterback, which they brought in a handful of pass rushers in the last couple of days. They're just looking to see if anybody's got fresh legs, can get in there and make something happen. You got to get after Mahomes and can't let him run around back there. And when it's 3rd and 15, guess what? He always makes 16 yards with his legs. So look out.
I know, and dude, even on a down year, the Chiefs still figure out a way to win their 8th straight AFC West and get the 3 seed. Mahomes has an 11-3 record in 14 career playoff starts, 13 of those starts coming at home, or I guess 12 of those with the 2 Super Bowls, so really only losing 1 at home. At least 2 TD passes, a 90-plus passer rating in each of his past 6. But when the Chiefs have been their best this year, it's been when Isaiah Pacheco's out there. He had a huge part in the game leading up to your Charger game in Week 18 against the Bengals. I'm sorry, they drove the ball down a lot, had to settle for field goals, but at least that looked more like the Chiefs' offense moving forward. But still, dude, just 21.8 points a game. That's 15th in scoring. You just don't associate that with the Chiefs team. And in that Week 9 game, the difference was really a Tyreek Hill fumble that was a scoop and score with just 33 seconds left in the second quarter. So it's not like the Chiefs were getting a lot going on offense in that game. The defense has bailed them out, which they've done a lot this year. And they've needed to do that because these Chiefs, dude, are -11 in turnover ratio. Mahomes is making some very questionable decisions with the football this year.
Yeah, there's no question about that, Casey. This isn't the same Chiefs offense that was just clicking along the last 5 seasons. This is they had hosted the AFC Championship 5 seasons in a row, and it was largely because their offense was so incredible. Last year, it was a younger defense that was shaping into place towards the end of the season as they really came together late defensively, and that's what sort of translated into this season and what Spags has been doing defensively with this Chiefs squad.
And, maybe they can turn it on. It's been such a prolific run. You mentioned the 5 straight AFC championships. Maybe there's like a malaise or a boredom that's coming with the regular season, and we are
Yeah.
going to see it. It just doesn't feel like that is what's going to happen. No, it feels like there are issues there. Cats being distracted with stuff outside of football,
Yeah.
people taking players, people taking coaches. We'll see. They have a
The
chance
most
to.
valuable bundler, for
That's right.
example,
Yeah,
and the
hogging
whole
them nuggies,
right.
It's a mess
Exactly.
out there. So, but beat these Dolphins, a banged up Dolphins team, might get to host another one, and the chances are it still could come back to KC for the AFC Championship.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of this game will be settled on the ground, but we shall see. It's going to be
Yeah. Well,
bad conditions, dude.
yeah, like you said, Pacheco for the Chiefs is if he can do what he does, and then on the other side, the combination of the running backs, A-Chain and Mostert, man, when they get those guys going, they can really gouge a defense pretty quickly.
Yeah,
So it'll
Jeff
be very
Wilson there
fascinating.
too.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Wilson too. So we shall see.
All right. Moving it on to Sunday, it is the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Buffalo Bills, and the Bills at home are favored by 9.5. That's a pretty big spread for a playoff game, Casey.
Absolutely. And since that week 12 loss to the Eagles, the Bills haven't lost a game. They've won 5 in a row, going from out of the playoffs to AFC East champs
Wow.
and the 2 seed. And since week 14, they're averaging over 24 points a game. That's 10th best in the NFL, over 350 yards a game. But where the biggest difference is, almost 150 yards rushing per game. That's good as for 5th in the NFL. And they're converting 50% of their third downs, dude. That's second in the league right now. So
Awesome.
the biggest difference in this team, besides James Cook, what he's been doing, is when Josh Allen does or does not turn the ball over. And besides that Cowboys game where he only threw the ball 15 times, Josh Allen's had at least one interception in every game since week 5. Dave, what do the Steelers love?
Oh man.
Getting those turnovers.
They are a turnover hog machine, and they get them at just the right time. It is fascinating how the Steelers team collects on turnovers just at the right moment in
Yeah.
time to win a game. The Steelers team has been remarkable this year, Casey. I mean, statistically speaking, I've been hammering them all year because they haven't been good, but they're 10-7 right now. Their 20th consecutive season with a 500 or better record. That's the second longest streak in the NFL history, right?
Wow.
But they were just 7-7 and kind of flailing as the 10 seed, having lost, like a handful of games, 4 out of 5 and 3 straight, whatever. Pickett was out, Trubisky struggling. They went to Mason Rudolph, and he gave them the spark they needed. They finally got to 30 points in a game, and they did it twice in a row,
Mm-hmm.
and 2 out of the 3 games with Rudolph. And they played good teams. They beat Cincy, Seattle, and Baltimore late there to finish the season. So all of those games you talked about, playoff games in the past that weren't, pseudo playoffs. All of those were playoff games because
Yeah.
if they didn't get those games, they wouldn't have found themselves as the 7th seed. One more loss and they're out of the playoffs, looking at all the other teams. But no, they rallied and did it. And like you said, a lot of it has to do with this defense. I mean, the offense has found their running game lately, though, and I think
Oh,
that's
yeah.
been enormous between Jalen Warren, who's had a career high 1,150 plus scrimmage yards, and then lately Najee Harris has
Mm-hmm.
really been a beast, physically speaking, over 1,200 yards from scrimmage from him this season. So those things, along with Mason Rudolph playing better football at the quarterback position, has got this offense playing decent. And then Pickens, who was criticized for not blocking, or basically he said it, I'm not blocking if it's going to risk it.
Yeah.
But then he's actually he's had a nice impact late. Since then, he had a huge game there. He's had a heck of a season, 1,100 plus yards. So, but you mentioned it, Casey. The key here is the way this defense functions. They don't give up a lot of points. They're
Mm-hmm.
sixth, tied for sixth, just giving up over 19 points a game. And they're tied for eighth with 27 takeaways. And that's led to a plus 11 turnover differential. So the turnovers in this game, as you mentioned, when you look at this Bill squad, when they lose, it's because they're sloppy with the football. In
Yep.
particular, Josh Allen turns the ball over a lot. And that could be the key, as it's been all season long, for this Steelers team to find a way to get a win in Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, if Allen is that sloppy, it's going to keep these Steelers in it. And I really love what James Cook has been doing in this offense, 1,500 scrimmage yards. But Stephon Diggs, dude, he hasn't gone over 100 yards since week 6 and no touchdowns in 5 straight games. I'm not sure if the weather in Buffalo is going to happen or to help that, because it's supposed to be in the high mid 20s, wind between 20 and 35 miles an hour, potential for snow too. That looks like it could be a ground game. And last year, the Bengals came in with an O-line that was beat to crap and came in there and ran all over these damn Bills. You
No
know,
question.
other than that loss, the Bills are 4-1 in playoff games at home. But like I said, that one loss was to the Bengals, and they got blowed out 27-10. What I do like about the Bills team is they've been sniffing around making a Super Bowl run the last couple of years here. I remember how they came out last year against the Rams. We're like, holy smokes, this team is ready. Kind of fell off this year. We mentioned they weren't even in the playoffs until a few weeks ago. They're finally catching their stride. And the good thing about Josh Allen is, as bad as it is, the good is even better. When he takes care of the ball, he
Hmm.
is one of the most dynamic playmakers in the league, and his legs could really be beneficial in this game, especially if it's tough to throw the football in this. So this
Yeah.
Bills team has definitely been through the fire. We're going to see if all that brutality becomes an asset to them on Sunday.
Yeah, and they lost to the Chiefs in the 13 seconds a couple of seasons ago. That just has got to eat them up. This is a team again that maybe it's peaking at the right time, as they've put together these late season wins to make this playoff push here. And like you said, if the wind is at 25, 30 miles an hour, that will impact the passing
Mhm.
game. And here's another huge thing that may impact this game is TJ Watt has been ruled out for this game.
Yeah.
He leads the Steelers with 19 sacks, has 19 tackles for loss, 4 forced fumbles, and 3 fumble recoveries. Take him off of the field for the Steelers team, and literally they are a different defense
Yeah.
than when he's on the field. He is their identity, and he's not just some vocal rah-rah guy. He makes huge plays at huge times. And take that out of the equation, like you said, now you've got Josh Allen running the ball a little bit more. When he puts the team on
Mhm.
his back, next thing you know, that Bills team is just churning down the field.
Yeah, but when you look in your mind's eye to we think a playoff game, cold weather, need to run the ball and play defense, you think Pittsburgh
That
freaking
sounds like a
Steelers.
Steeler ball game, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be good, baby.
It is going to be a good one.
Oh, Dave,
Here it comes.
I'm gonna be squirmy. It's not gonna be fun. It's gonna be the whole time. But I am talking the Green Bay Packers at my Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys 7.5 point favorites. The Mike McCarthy Bowl, Dave. It was 13 short years ago when McCarthy led the Packers to a Super Bowl 45 victory in Dallas. Ugh. Packers coming back. One of the hottest teams in the NFL right now. And Jordan Love is playing some great football.
Yep, no question about it. And your boys at home, Casey, favored by 7.5. Am I right? Something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, Packers have made the playoffs in for the fourth time in 5 seasons under Matt LaFleur. So pretty nice go of it there. But it wasn't easy in Josh Love's first season as a starter. They were really struggling offensively with a record of 3-6, and it just seemed like, hey, Love can't play, and this team is sunk for the season. But they rallied and won 3 in a row, beating some good teams, including my Chargers, but also the Lions and the Chiefs in that rally there.
Mhm.
Seemingly, they were ready to make a playoff push. Josh Love playing great football during that stretch, but
Jordan.
then Jordan Love, excuse me, right? But then they lost 2 in a row, and they dropped to 6-8, the 11 seed. It seemed again they were out, but then they got it together, ripped off 3 straight wins. And all of those were necessary to make the playoffs because now they are the 7 seed. Had they not won all 3 of those, they would have not made the playoffs. Love finished the regular season, though, Casey, ranked second in the
Mhm.
NFL with 32 TD passes. That doesn't seem even like, wow, that doesn't jive, but that's the case. He had 4,159 passing yards, and in his last 8 games, he has 20 touchdowns, 18
Oof.
passes, and 2 rush. That's just 1 interception, 20 scores with
Wow.
1 pick in that time period. So both Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon are questionable in this game, and they've struggled with injuries all season, but they are a great 1-2 punch. And Jones has been playing really well over the last 3 games. He has 406 scrimmage yards in those 3 games. And I think the key to this whole situation for the Packers this season is the emergence of these young receivers, Casey.
Yeah.
And the stats bear that out. They have 31 touchdowns to receivers that are playing in their first or second season in the NFL. That is the most by any team in the common draft era. So,
Yeah. Like 85% of their offensive production is first and second year players.
right. Don't tell Aaron Rodgers any of this, though, Casey. He's not going to be happy about this new batch of receivers for the Packers here. They're playing so well, but Christian Watson is questionable in this one. Romeo Doubs questionable, but Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, and then you look at these tight ends, Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft have emerged as also very significant playmakers, guys that are involved in a blocking game as well as receiving the football. So when you put it all together, this team, again, they've gone through trials and tribulations along the way. They are seemingly kind of peaking towards the playoffs here, Casey, at just the right time. And just the right time to head into Dallas and try and do some damage.
Yeah, we'll see what's up with this Cowboys defense. Obviously, much better at home. They would love
Yeah.
to make the Packers play catch up there. Can they get that rush on Love? Can they pressure him, force him into some errant throws? This is going to be the biggest game of his pro career. We've seen him. It took a little bit, but now he's evolved into a starter here. You mentioned weapons. Oh, plenty there. If we can get it and take those backs out of the running game and just let the dogs go, it
Woo.
could be a long day for Love and the Packers, and I hope that's what happens. And if the game on Sunday is a barometer of what's gone on before that, then that's exactly what should happen. The Cowboys, the only team to go undefeated at home, 8-0. They've won 16 straight games at home, and in
Wow.
home games this season, the Dallas has led the NFL in points scored, 299, points margin plus 172, total offense at over 425, and turnover margin at 1.25 per game. Hopefully, that is a sign of things to come. A big reason for that success. Dak Prescott
He's been
leads the,
exceptional. I
oh,
mean,
yeah, led the league in touchdown passes, 36. He's the first Dallas player in 50 years to lead the NFL in TD passes since Roger Staubach, Hall of Fame guy. You might know him. Prescott also became the first quarterback in NFL history with 4 games in a season with a completion percentage of 80 or higher. The word was in preseason. Remember, in training camp, they were counting Dak's interceptions. He had regressed. He can't read defenses. That's not been the case at all. Dak is playing some of the best football of his career, and he's carried this team because the running game has not been that great until lately. But Dave, know what's got me most stoked about this team, and I know it was just the Durs last week who didn't have much to play for, but
right.
not counting the 3 first and goal plays that the Cowboys were 3 for 3 and scored touchdowns on all 3. Dallas averaged 6.96 yards per play on first down.
Yeah.
This offense was 2nd and 3, 3rd and 2. It's perfect. That's exactly what you want. And
Yeah.
they were able to just destroy the Durs because of that. If they can continue to run well and dominate on first down, they're going to be damn near impossible to beat. We have at least 1 game, at least 2 games at home. If they win,
Yeah.
hopefully that defense can overwhelm the Packers. Hopefully Micah can get a holding call. It's been 11 games that he's not been held once. Crazy, man. For a guy that gets that much pressure to not be held once, I find it a little bit out there, but he also got snubbed for an all-pro bid, which I
Mm.
think is going to come back and motivate Micah on Sunday. Lots of expectations for these Cowboys. They got what they want. They play great at home. They got a home playoff
Yeah,
game.
the home record is a huge part of it, Casey, and I'm really impressed with the performance that the Cowboys have at home. And you mentioned when you're doing 2nd and 3 or 2nd and 4, the whole playbook's in front of you, play action, and the way the Dak has been lacing the ball in there with such nice touch. CeeDee Lamb has really shown that he is arguably at this point the best receiver in the NFL. You can
Yeah.
certainly make that argument. But Casey, it's really going to come down to this playoff performance here for Dak, because really last year it came down to the playoffs, and Dak did struggle at for whatever reason you want to call it. And this is the Cowboys. This is people either love them or hate them, and
Yeah.
it's up to Dak right now to show everybody that what he did in the regular season can be translated into the postseason, and you guys can play like you have at home all season long. Because yeah, like you said, you're going to have this home game and another one if you take care of business.
Yeah. And Dak wants that smoke. He's ready for it. So we're gonna find out how ready he is on Sunday, dude. I'm gonna be squirming. Oh, it's gonna. Will
That's
I be able
good.
to sleep between now and then? TBD.
That is going to be a good one. All right, Casey, we have our Los Angeles Rams heading to Detroit to play the
Rock City.
Lions. Detroit Rock City to play the Lions. The Lions are favored by 3 in this one, and this is the Stafford Bowl, Casey, or the Goff Bowl, whichever one you want to start. The Stafford Goff Bowl, because now we have obviously these two guys traded for each other, and you got the pieces that the Lions were able to also accumulate as part of absorbing that throwaway contract that the Rams couldn't wait to get rid of Jared Goff, who had already taken them to a Super Bowl. But of course, they got Stafford. They won their Super Bowl, and now here we are. It's going to be exciting to see these two guys and the storyline that surrounds them.
Dave, do you remember 1992?
Well,
Barely.
vaguely.
It's a little fuzzy. Well, that was the year that Some Gave All was the best-selling record. That record was the debut album of one Billy Ray Cyrus. In November of that year, Cyrus and his wife gave birth to their daughter, Miley. Many years later, Miley would go on to be friends with Taylor Swift. Years after that, Swift would go on to date Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce. But I'm actually talking about January 5th, 1992. That was the date the Lions last won a postseason game, a 38-6 victory over the Cowboys. You didn't know where the hell I was going, did you, Dave? I'm wily. I'm spinning. Oh, but that was a divisional playoff win at the Pontiac Silverdome, and these Lions are
Wow.
looking to create some new history with a win over, you said it, one of its former favorite sons.
Yep.
The storylines with these playoff games is absolutely insane. It's a beautiful thing. And the Lions really putting together a nice season. They did get a major scare when their all-world rookie tight end Sam Laporta went down versus the Vikings. On Monday, Campbell said he would have an outside shot of playing. Well, Wednesday, Laporta participated in the team's walkthrough, but a walkthrough is not practice. So that has me a little bit worried for him on Sunday. But a
Yeah.
team coached by one of the toughest former tight ends in league history will try to find a way for Laporta to go. But what are they going to do if they don't have Laporta? He's been such a huge part of that offense. Obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of their best receivers, and they have a stable there of good ones. But I love what's going on with the running backs there with David Montgomery and the rookie Jamar Gibbs. This guy is kind of rounding into form now, showing the potential of what this offense can do. And when they're running the ball and
Yeah.
passing the ball, these Lions are really hard to beat.
And it's a really nice tandem at running back there. Montgomery can kind of do the dirty work around the goal line, and he's a physical back. And then the Gibbs shows you the explosiveness that made him the 12th pick in the draft. He, just has that burst that's so exciting to see. And like you said, if Sam Laporta can or can't go, that's a real big thing for this Lions team.
Yeah, and that Lions defense has been pretty good too. They've had some
Yeah.
lapses there. Hutchinson's been awesome. He had 3 sacks against the Cowboys a couple of weeks ago. Campbell played the starters longer into that Vikings game than I thought they were going to go, but he's had a plan for what he wants to do all season, and he's stuck with it. So when that toughness is your MO, you have to display toughness, and they're
Yeah.
going to need every bit of toughness against this Rams team because, shockingly, dude, I thought the Rams were going to be trash this year,
Yeah.
and they have hit on so many of those late picks,
Hmm.
and now they are healthy, and this is one of the hottest teams coming into the playoffs.
Yeah. In fact, at one point the Rams were 3-6. Stafford had missed a game or two in there, and they looked like they were dead in the water. But they've won 7 of the last 8, and now they're 10-7. That's good for the 6th seed. The Rams have made the playoffs 5 times in the last 7 seasons under
Wow.
McVay. They won, of course, the Super Bowl 56 title after the 21 season. Stafford this year, almost 4,000 passing yards and 24 TDs. Cup, though, has been struggling with injury this season, is rounding into shape physically, though. In 12 games, 59 catches, 700 plus yards and 5 TDs. But it's like you mentioned, a couple of 5th-round draft picks. Rookie Puka Nacua with 737 yards and 5 TDs. And Kieran Williams have been workhorses for the Rams, actually. Puka set single-season rookie records, 105 receivings and 1,486 yards receiving. Kyron Williams, out of Notre Dame, 1,350 scrimmage yards and 15 TDs. You know that all too well as he was your fantasy workhorse, Casey. What a nice tandem of late round picks to hit on, man. So when you look at what this Rams team is doing offensively, when they get it going, it just seems like, man, they can really dazzle you with play calling and guys just breaking wide open and running free, man. And the way Kyron Williams has been running with such ferocity, it just and explosiveness, it's been an amazing thing that he kind of came out of nowhere. Although I kind of was a fan of him at Notre Dame,
Yeah.
but you didn't see this coming.
No, nobody did. And I really like what's going on there, and a healthy Stafford. Just the sky's the limit on this guy. And
Yep.
Dave, I really want to root for Jared Goff and those Lions, but this is political. I need the Rams going to San Francisco because that's
Ooh,
would be a
yeah,
3rd round divisional game with those guys, and then
yeah,
anything can happen. That is if the Cowboys handle their business. But this Rams team is so complete. I don't like how they did Goff, and I love what's happening with Goff in Detroit.
yeah.
And I feel bad rooting against a city that needs that dub. But
Yeah,
like I said,
this
it's
is a game where
political.
as much of any of these games, it's where I want both teams to win. I know that can't
Yeah.
happen, but both of these teams, whichever one wins, I'm going to be excited for them moving forward and disappointed for the team that loses.
Absolutely. All right, Dave. I guess, was it last year that this thing started or 2 years ago? Anyways, we have Monday Night Football Playoff Edition, and this one is the Philadelphia Eagles at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Eagles are 2.5-point favorites, and this is a rematch from Week 3 when Philly won at Tampa 25-11. But Dave, the trajectory of these two teams, opposite directions, bro.
Yeah, Eagles started off the season one of the best teams in the league. They were 10-1. But lately they've struggled, losing 5 of the last 6. Now those are some good losses in there: San Francisco, Dallas, Seattle. But and a feisty Arizona team, they split with the Giants. And really, in that Giants game that they won, that's really the only game that they've played decently on offense. The other
Yeah.
games, they really have not played well. Their record fell to 11-6. They are now the 5 seed, and they got to go on the road. Right. So neither side of the ball has been playing good lately, honestly. The question is, can they flip the switch in the playoffs here, rediscover their previous domination? Right. But on a positive note, that as you look at the whole totality of the season, Jalen Hurts had a career year, his highest passing yards ever at over 3,800 yards. He has 23 pass TDs. He rushed for 15 touchdowns,
Wow.
and he had 2 pass touchdowns in 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing and 1 passing in the Week 3 matchup versus the Bucs. So AJ Brown had also a career high 106 catches, 1,450 plus yards, 7 touchdowns, and he had 131 yards in the Week 3 matchup. Devonta Smith, 81 yards, over 1,000, 81 catches, over 1,000 yards on the season. So Dallas Goddard has had a great season. DeAndre Swift a career high 1,263 scrimmage yards, and he rushed for 130 yards in the week 3 meeting. So if the week 3 meeting is any indicator, then this offense should find its rhythm again. It is 8th in yards per game at over 350 on the season and 7th in points per game. But this defense, Casey,
Oh, yeah.
it's not what it was last year.
But I don't even know. I mean, I'm assuming those cats are going to play, but
Right.
Devonta Smith missed last week. AJ Brown left the game with injury
Right. So
last
you're
week.
right. Casey,
Swift
they are
is a little
banged up.
banged up.
Yeah.
So,
Jalen Hurts listed as
Jay,
questionable.
yeah, he had that crazy finger,
Ooh.
dude, off the helmet. I thought he was just saying hello to the Raiders, but it turned out that that thing was pretty mangled. So,
Yeah.
no telling what's going on with these guys. And speaking of banged up, it's good that this game is coming on Monday night because Baker got the crap kicked out of him
Ooh, he sure
in
did.
Carolina, actually, the last 2 weeks. He's got the bad ribs. He's got the gimpy ankle, but Baker is as tough as they come. You know, he's ready to go. He'd be ready to go today if he had to. But
Yeah.
the playoffs actually started for the Bucs last week as well, as the Carolina game was a win or go home. And the Bucs, beat up as they were, they found a way to win that game. What I like about the Bucs, +8 in turnovers. What I don't like about the Eagles, -10. Well, I actually love that about the Eagles because I hate the Eagles. But anyways, both of these teams near the bottom of the league in pass defense, so that might make it for a shootout, which could be exciting. Bucs pretty good at stopping the run. They're going to have to contain Hurts and force into some big mistakes. That's happened quite a bit this season. He's got the rushing touchdowns, but those are mostly coming off of the brotherly shove there. It's not like he's running and as dangerous as he has been. There's talk about a knee holding him back. I don't know what the deal is there, but this Bucs defense giving up less than 20 points a game. And you mentioned the week 3, Philly ran for 200 yards, over 5 a carry. Swift, you talked 130 yards, but the Bucs in that game gained just 41 yards on the ground at 2.4 per carry. That's not going to get it done, dude. They got to figure out a way to get their running game going. And one of the matchups I'm most stoked to see in this game is Vita Vea versus Jason Kelsey, baby. That is going to be a battle up front. That will be a huge barometer on if the Eagles are able to run the football or not. The Bucs finished 32nd with just 88 yards per game on the ground.
Ooh.
But down the stretch, Rachaad White, 4 straight games with 100+ scrimmage yards. So he's going to have to be a major factor in this game, be it catching the ball or running it. Evans and Godwin, though, they should feast on this Philadelphia secondary who might not have big play Slay out there.
Yeah.
I mentioned different directions down the stretch. Bucs 5-1, Eagles 1-5. But dude, a win makes all the bad stuff go away. A loss brings all that shit front and center.
Yeah. And like you said, man, this defense, nowhere near what they were last year. They were 30th in the league for the Eagles, given up in terms of points per game, given up over 25 points per game, second to last against the pass. And we've seen Baker light it up in that last portion of the season there when the Bucs were taking care of their business, heading their way towards the playoffs. Last year, remember, they had over 70 sacks and 4 different dudes had 10 sacks.
Yeah.
This year, they only have 43 sacks. They can't get after the quarterback. They're not good on the back end. We just talked about their pass defense being very porous. They only have 18 takeaways on the season, which, as you mentioned, has led to them being -10 in the turnover differential. And you can't emphasize enough. You mentioned the number of high quality players that they have that are questionable. Now, I'm thinking these guys are going to get on the field.
Yeah,
but again, you're talking about Hurts, Swift, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. And
that's everybody. That's the whole
that's
offense,
their
dude.
offense, right?
Yeah.
And you just said Darius Slay on the defensive side questionable. And if they can't put these guys on the field and have a legitimate chance for them to perform, then they're going to get eaten up by Baker in that passing game.
And we saw Tyrod do that last week. Buy a little time, find a wide open Saquon. He was finding dudes that there wasn't an Eagle 10 yards around them. So stuff is breaking down. I don't know if Cats have already checked out. Obviously, they lost both coordinators. So there's lots of drama in Philly. And with all those turnovers, who knows what could happen there. But It's my former Sooner quarterbacks going head to head there. So,
Yeah,
but I'm rooting for Baker and these Bucks. Baker got that cool extra milli for getting these Bucks into the playoffs.
good for him.
He's one of my favorite college players of all time. Finally got some stability and a team that's reaping the benefits for sticking with him. So, Monday night playoff football, dude. I was in Mexico last year for that. So this is my first little taste of this. So I am completely stoked, dude.
Oh, dude, I am utterly and completely and totally stoked about this 6-pack of games this weekend. Yeah, and this one on Monday night's going to be a doozy.
Ooh, I cannot wait. So many ways you can check out the Football Dudes, the Trend Zone, what you're listening to right now, available for subscription. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music.
Anywhere you get your podcasts.
Yeah.
Also,
True.
folks, don't forget, subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Instagram and Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Football Dudes LA, also known as X, and make sure you tag us across all social media platforms.
And while you're out there surfing the interwebs, go ahead and hit a bookmark for footballdudes.com. That is going to do it for this Wildcard Weekend episode of the Trend Zone. We're not the suits that talk football. We're the dudes that know football. For Dave, I'm Casey, and we are out of here.